Welcome. It's time for Coinfest. Yeah. We're on Bitcoin block 516.931. Mempool's looking pretty good. We got a bit of traffic probably from the last day we were open so many Lightning channels. I mean, we'll take credit for that one.
Sorry, network.
Do it now while they're cheap. You know, you got your 2 and 3 sat byte transactions are clearing no problem. Let's see here. Coinfest is globally sponsored by Turnkey Linux. Hundreds of software solutions easily deployable to all your different needs, whether it's bare metal, virtual machines, or in the cloud. Check it out today at turnkeylinux.org and also in the link below. Also sponsored by Quantstamp. So these guys run an auditing services for smart contracts, and they're also doing some live monitoring services of the blockchain to keep an eye out for any smart contracts that might have some known vulnerabilities, you know, kind of preventing the DAO scenarios all over again. So these guys are doing a great service. Awesome team, sponsored by like Y Combinator. So they're doing really well, and we'd like to see them succeed and help make the Ethereum network and the EVM more stable. As usual, if you guys are in the live chat and have questions, we would be happy to answer them. But without further ado, let's get her going here. Welcome live from the basement. Hi, I'm Alex. We got the rest of our awesome team here. Andrew, on behalf of whatever you're on behalf of. What is it today, Andrew?
Well, brief note, we had another panelist who's in the hospital. But I'm an advisor for his coin anyway, so maybe I'll try to chime in for some answers on Autonio's end. But I am not exactly an expert to AI myself. We have this guy too. He may throw questions at you. But yeah, I'm an advisor at Autonio. And basically this panel, we're talking about the merger of AI and blockchain, which is 2 of our favorite buzzwords, data with big data and, you know, what I'm talking about, guys.
Yeah, yay, buzzwords.
Buzzwords.
Don't forget IoT.
Yeah, IoT.
That is right.
You know, our Autonio's AI is very specific. It's just for trading right now. Centralized trading bot. It learns from other people's trades, stores the code locally, and is self-optimizing in that way. But and it's a very intricate. Bro, it's loud.
Hollywood.
Sorry, boys.
It's a very intricate thing doing AI. You know, the first thing I noticed when Ali from Autonio came to me and mentioned his project, first thing I said to him was, "You can't do that. That doesn't scale on the blockchain." Because obviously you can't put all the AI code for a complex bot on the blockchain. So there's things where, you know, you have to store code locally, and I think there's going to be interesting innovations coming there. Maybe you should tell us more about Neurial.
Yeah, we have on the call here Kyler from Neurial.
Hey guys, how's it going? Yeah, I mean, it's kind of an interesting topic as far as not scaling on the blockchain. That was one of my original thoughts when Will approached me about his idea back in, gosh, 2013. And as it turns out, you don't have to use the blockchain to carry all of the internalized code. That's actually what Neurial is building, is essentially a competition platform for predictive AIs on the blockchain. So essentially, I don't know if you guys remember this, but 2009, Netflix launched a competition to get the best machine learning algorithm in order to predict future user star rating based on information that was available pre-production. They launched, I think it was a $3 million, well, it was $1 million prize, plus they put a lot of money into promoting it and moving it around. But what they ended up with was like the best for 2009 and only in that time period, and then they've kind of made small incremental improvements on it. What we're doing is essentially that, but decentralized on the blockchain and open to everybody to be able to access. So again, yeah, I mean, the actual predictor will be stored locally and will be ran locally, because that's another one of the problems you run into. It's not just the storage on the blockchain. It's so much quicker when everything's there on the same hard drive and can be moved from place to place. And it expands the time exponentially when you have to bounce it off satellites and then bring it back to Earth through the internet. Yeah, it makes all these operations a lot harder. But if you run them locally and have them compete and organize to do bits of the work via the blockchain like CureCoin's doing, then absolutely possible.
Yeah, I agree. Or that's pretty much the route all other AI chains have to be taking so far, I've seen. You can, or stop me if I'm wrong again. I'm just the advisor, but we store the code locally, and the blockchain dictates how the code is adjusted over time. Like it orders the code what it should be, and we're all expected to be storing the same code locally. Like,
well, I mean, it's different with our project. I know that some projects are like that. So far as I understand it, that's how stuff like Deep Brain Chain works and that kind of thing. But with Neurial, it's actually all different. Like I said, it's a competition platform. So that's part of why it's there, is that we believe that the competition aspect of it will continuously drive improvement. Only the most accurate predictor gets paid out throughout a competition. And the other thing is that we're using a sidechain solution, because there's a lot of data being passed back and forth between these things, and it would fill up the blockchain very, very quickly. And so I think, or what we've kind of figured out is that if each separate prediction, I guess I should mention, Neurial is AI, but we're not trying to make generalized AI. We're doing very specifically predictions. That's it. We're very, very focused on predictions. But on the opposite side of that, it can predict anything that has a live data stream. But there's going to be specific algorithms that are going to be better at predicting different kinds of live data streams. For instance, our first couple of MVPs kind of demonstrate this. The first one, kind of like yours, it's predicting the price of cryptocurrency pairings into the future. And like I said, it's a competition platform, so it continuously drives the improvement of that.
It's extremely similar, at least in its idea and structure. Like the Autonio does the same thing, where it's learning over time. Whoever's you can adjust the code yourself, but if you win, it stores your code and applies it to everyone else. Just like a similar concept.
Kind of. Ours doesn't apply it to everyone else. Essentially, ours allows all of this competition to morph and take place. Now, it's up to those individuals whether they want to look at the more successful strategies and integrate those into how they're predicting. But we really believe that, like, there's so many different ways to try and, forgive the metaphor, but skin the predictive cat, that you're going to find some really interesting things over time. And not only that, but they don't all have access to the same data streams. They're encouraged to go out and find better data streams. Basically, like, somebody will come forward to the network with a prediction that they want. This could be a large company like Lyft. In fact, I'll just use the example because we've been in talks with them. Lyft wants to do something like have their self-driving cars hold the network every time they're about to drop off a passenger, in order to figure out, using live streaming data from their partner Waymo, where the most effective place for that car to wait for its next passenger is going to be. What's going to be the most profitable place for it to wait for its next passenger. But let's say that somebody else that's in that predictive contest, they're going to be getting that one really rich source of data, which is the GPS data. But they're also going to be able to grab data sources from other places. Like maybe they're a partner with a payment network, and they've got really good data about where people are in the store and how much they've spent and at what different place. So they can kind of say, well, there's more traffic over here, but just so happens that these people over here are just finished and made their payment and are ready to leave the store. Does that make sense?
It's interesting to me. It also sounds like, well, one thing I noticed right away is that pretty much every AI blockchain project so far is very specific in its niche. You're doing predictions. Ali's doing trading bots. I guess it must be hard to do a general AI, or have you thought about doing more generalized AI?
There are a lot of pieces to that, and the way that I currently see it, and the way that our team currently sees it, is that, like, generalized AI, like, really, if you want to look at what I think the future is going to be, instead of people building full-on generalized AI, look at Singularity.net. What they're doing is writing code that allows blockchain-based AIs to communicate and act and use each other and integrate each other seamlessly. Does that make sense? So,
yeah. Another thing, with your project, it does sound also a little more broad than, like, for example, what kinds of predictions can you make? Like, can you include a price prediction? Can that be
yeah, price predictions are true, but I want to distinguish something. Like, you guys are building an actual trading bot, and a trading bot executes decisions. What we're building only makes predictions. It can give data that the one that actually makes decisions can then use in order to more accurately do trades, but ours will not make any decisions for you ever. It just provides a live stream of data going forward, a predictive stream.
But you could, to the extent that it can do price predictions, I could apply that to trading.
Sure, absolutely. But another good example would be our second MVP, which is going to be hurricane prediction models for the Caribbean. We saw what kind of damage was done when, I mean, for instance, NOAA says that their cone of uncertainty is about 60. I'll wait for that because I'm actually getting the echo now too.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just making some adjustments here on the fly.
Totally fine. So essentially, we saw a lot of the damage that got done when the most recent spat of hurricanes made its way through the Caribbean. And one of the big things that we noticed is that the first one, not the one that hit Puerto Rico, but the one that actually, it was broadcast to go slightly north of the Bahamas, but ended up doing 3 loop-de-loops and then came back down and smashed into Cuba, who was entirely unprepared, and there were thousands of deaths that didn't need to happen. Or where we evacuated people from Florida directly into the path of the hurricane. That's not 60 degrees of uncertainty. That's kind of an entire 80-degree side panel. It's pretty terrible. And there is some competition theoretically between the two models, but so little of it gets applied, and it gets applied in such an archaic bureaucratic fashion that it really doesn't make sense. So what we're doing is doing a prediction competition for better predictive AI on those hurricane models in the Caribbean. Those are just the first two kinds of things that we're doing, but it's very broadly applied. Anything that has a live data stream can be predicted with Neurial. Yeah, and it is incredibly hard to do generalized AI in any way. I mean, for instance, Watson, which is sort of it's kind of a generalized AI, would only be considered a single predictor on our platform. And I don't know. There's a lot of ways to go about it, but it's going to be a little while before we see any kind of generalized AI. What I think we're going to see is generalized AI that get cobbled together through multiple other specialized projects, kind of like nodes in a brain, that all sort of get overseen by something like Singularity.net.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, man. That sounds like the future.
So you guys you said there was kind of like a competitive element to what Neurial is doing, like where several AIs are kind of focused on the same problem, and the network maybe helps decide who came up with it first.
Well, no, the network, when the network checks in, that it's not who came up with it first, it's who's most accurate. That's all the network cares about, is the most accurate prediction. And so there's a lot of ways to kind of picture this, but the way Neurial works, let's say that we're just doing price point predictions, right? So you're going to come in and you create an oracle, like you, the person with the question. Actually, I got an even better one. We've been approached by a couple of companies who are looking to make an application that can take your Fitbit data and then predict when you might be most likely to have a heart attack, myocardial infarction. And so the way that would happen is you'd come to the network and you would offer up a bit of our token as a reward for most accurately answering the question. But you'd set up multiple different oracles, which is basically the way you ask the question depends on, you can set time ticks. So they have to make a prediction every 5 seconds, every 20 seconds, every day, every 3 days, whatever. And I want to make it clear, it's not just AI that can compete on this network. There's a way of predicting that they call wisdom of the crowd. This is what Augur is doing. So like all of Augur, they're doing wisdom of the crowd one specific way, provided if you made the data ticks far enough apart that humans could actually participate in it, like every 12 hours or every 24 hours, you could actually get humans predicting on this network. But for the really quick ones, like the heart attack, the way that you do that is you'd set up multiple different questions, one a ticket every couple seconds, and then you designate a payoff. So like this week or this month, right? And at the end, it would calculate who had been accurate at the most of those ticks with a slight weighted average. And then the person who was the most accurate over time would be the one paid. But the next oracle, you might stipulate that it's like the closest 5, or you might stipulate that there's no weighted average. Again, because there's so many ways to do this. And because most users aren't going to be aware of the best way to ask their question, we're actually doing something a little bit different than a lot of other cryptocurrency projects are doing. We're splitting off and giving seed funding to a for-profit company that we call Powered by Neurial. Powered by Neurial is going to employ a couple of data scientists. Their entire job is just to take your questions and then organize them in the best way to ensure the most accurate results, with a small fee placed on top of that for convenience.
It does sound really similar to Augur in a lot of what you described.
Well, Augur does wisdom of the crowd, and they do it a single way. Ours takes all of this, predictive algorithms, neural networks, even different types of predictive algorithms which we haven't yet invented or envisioned all compete. So again, Augur would only be one single competitor on the platform, and even among wisdom of the crowd, there's several 100,000 ways to set up the way that you weight your answers and the way that you get your answers. So it incorporates what Augur does, but it's definitely not the same as Augur. Augur pings individual humans and then uses small machine data learning in order to weight their averages and figure out the way they do that. And even the little adjustments that they make and how much they weight each accurate answer, that can drastically affect accuracy over time.
I find that really interesting too, because it's almost like it adds incentive for people to like train AI.
Exactly.
You have, because like with me, when I train a model, you run through your epochs with TensorFlow, but this is like, instead of just running through epochs on one model, you have a whole bunch of models.
Yep.
And that's incentive. That's really cool.
And the other really cool thing is that if somebody's predicting accurately, their prediction stream is probably going to be useful to a different predictive string that's happening on the same network. And so they're then incentivized to sell the data that they receive plus their data stream that they're predicting themselves to this other prediction to make that more accurate as well. Not like the way I like to term it is everybody here familiar with the X Prize and why the X Prize was set up?
No, or I'm not.
So Peter Diamandis is a millionaire or multimillionaire who essentially sat down one day and said, I can't imagine a future in which humanity is a single planetary species. That's way too scary for me. And then he goes, well, how much personal wealth can I throw at this? And the answer is about $8 million. And in space bucks, $8 million is less than peanuts. So he figured I can found one engineering firm that'll solve one of these 27 problems we need to be able to go and colonize Mars, and we're only going to solve it in one way that's not even guaranteed to be the best way. So what he did with that money instead is he invested into a couple of funds so that it would continuously grow, and then set out specific indicators or tasks with like, this is how you can prove that you solved this task, and then put real money rewards behind that. And that is what sparked companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin to found and start chasing the X Prize. It's why we have this big rush of commercial companies building things to be able to go to space. And that's exactly what we're doing, but for predictive algorithms. And the other side of this is that, Elon Musk just said this a couple of days ago, and it's something I've been saying for almost a year now. Centralized AI is a really terrifying thing. AI continues to be viewed as something that is coming, but it's actually something that's here right now and is currently being used by the tiniest percentile of humans in order to predict what the future is going to be and manipulate the outcomes of events. The future that we're currently heading towards without decentralized AI is a future in which only those who are incredibly rich and powerful already or have devoted incredible time into trying to learn this brand new skill set are going to be able to basically control the world using AI tools and AI weapons. And it's very likely that the race to develop those best is likely to end in the destruction of humanity. Whereas we believe the only way to solve that problem, we're not going to be able to close Pandora's box, is to build it and open it to everyone and give everyone equal access to something that is, well, for instance, Nuriel, with the competitive element of it, even a centralized AI is very likely to be able to outcompete us for very long. The incentive structure is in place in order to make sure that we outcompete everything over a given length of time. And it essentially means that everyone in the world gets access to the most powerful tool that exists on equal footing. We believe it's the only way to go forward, and it's the only way to solve these problems that have been brought up in the AI field, is to decentralize.
I have a question for you then too. If you do now, of course, this is like way down the line, but eventually I do believe that we are going to reach sentience with AI. So my question is that if it's decentralized, then how are you going to be able to control it so then it doesn't?
Well, let me put a couple of things interestingly. So for instance, what we're talking about decentralizing would be equivalent if this was a human brain. to one teeny tiny little node of that brain, just the part of your brain near the brainstem that is involved in making calculations about the future. Does that make sense? And each one of those communicate with each other in a, like, for instance, let's say that we have a sentient AI and that it essentially uses something akin to Singularity.net as its corpus callosum, the piece that actually communicates between all the brain nodes and helps keep it together. First of all, it would be taking input from all of us, and it doesn't function without us. Does that make sense? Like Neurial, if there's nobody asking questions and feeding it data, then it does nothing. It just sits.
Yeah.
So there wouldn't really be any reason to shut it off or worry about it going the way that you're talking about when all of us have control over the very base nodes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Okay.
There's also a degree to which I don't want us to have control over it. Like,
well,
I got into AI because via my interest in blockchain video games, and I played Hunter Coin a lot. And the problem is Hunter Coin has no NPCs. It's a completely decentralized game and world, no server, but it has no NPCs because their decentralized world can't do AI. So if someone could, when the AI is uncontrollable, it makes the NPCs feel more real to us, right? If someone could command it and make it do stuff, it would feel less dynamic and organic to us. We can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
No, you have to start over.
Oh, that's okay. Check. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Cool. No. I completely agree with you. I don't think it should be controlled. Jordan Miller, member of my team there in the chat, I think he says it best. It can't be controlled. Don't try. And to be honest, that's because, guys, very arguably, we've already become cyborgs. This is just integrating a new, better, higher ability into all of us. I like to say this. It's kind of weird and esoteric, but my old job used to be a marksmanship instructor for the Marine Corps. And when I was there, one of the things that we used to teach constantly is that, like, the human brain is a prediction-making machine, and your ability to accurately predict the future is essentially dictated that's what your intelligence is. And if you don't believe me, think about the step-by-step process of throwing or catching a baseball. When you're catching a baseball, you're looking at it and you're predicting not only what the trajectory is, how fast it's traveling along that trajectory, what the skin's made of, how hard you're going to have to grip it, hundreds of thousands of calculations about wind factors and muscle twitch reaction, all of these things. Your ability to accurately execute on those dictates your ability to accurately interact with the world, right? So if you look at it in that way, what Neurial is creating and what other AI platforms are really creating is the ability for humans to surpass the biological limitations on human intelligence one question at a time.
There's another cool AI project we're working on. Because like you said, generalized AI is hard. So now that Autonio wants to tackle a new thing, they're just making a second AI. Both AIs are going to be specific to their tasks. Now we're looking at trading bots and things. For I do ESL Coin as another project, and we want chat bots. In our chat rooms. So we're trying to get Autonio to create that in a decentralized manner for us, because we want this to be a DApp, right? We're trying to create a decentralized app for my ESL students, and in that sense, if we're going to have chatbots in the app, we want this whole system to be autonomous and ongoing, such that if I disappeared, it would continue, and that's a necessity, I think.
No, I completely agree, and it's funny you should mention that. I'm literally in a Telegram right now while we're on this conference, getting somebody to build a chatbot for our Telegram group. Because, good lord, am I sick of the porn bots?
Very cool. Any questions from audience? AI, it's the future, guys.
Have you had any contact with Google? And I mean, talk about AI. You're putting it in your home.
No, that's a really good question, actually. I don't know if you guys know this, but one of the co-founders of Google actually essentially bankrolled a really interesting AI blockchain project recently called Endor. It's similar to what we're trying to do, only I don't want to lambast any project. And don't get me wrong, I don't think this needs it. It's just they well, yeah, they went around some interesting ways that I don't feel like they really pissed off the entire cryptocurrency community that they gathered. They were from the beginning only offering 20% of the final token in the sale ever. Yeah.
That sounds more like issues with their model than it is.
Yeah.
Well, but they also decided that, like, we realized that we're going to have to build our own blockchain for this. We realized that it was always going to have to be its own blockchain, and that it was going to have sidechain scaling solutions, because the amount of data that's getting passed back and forth is just unfreaking believable. Right now, we have a working product and a prototype. The prototype is built off of a fork of Peercoin. We can only leave it on for a couple days at a time because it fills up its blockchain to a degree that we can't hold it on a regular hard drive. So the sidechain solution is necessary. What Endor is trying to do is do the exact same thing but use the Ethereum blockchain, and they have no plans to transition away from the Ethereum blockchain.
That's interesting. Would you suggest others doing AI projects use the blockchain you plan to create? Like, could we use it?
Potentially, absolutely. We are 100% open source. We're 100% transparent. And if you're building a project like this and have some ideas, we'd love to hear from you, because we're not 100, like, that's why we're raising money, is because we still have to work on our blockchain quite a lot before it's ready for release. But
Coinfest.
Say again?
We'll talk about that after Coinfest.
Oh, okay, cool. But yeah, I mean, if people have ideas, we'd love to offer up what we already have. We've got a Telegram rolling where we're actually talking about potential new solutions to the scaling problem that don't have to do with sidechains and Lightning. But we'll have to see. I mean, it works really well for what we're doing. I noticed a question in chat. I can answer it real quick. The token that we're using to raise money is an ERC20 token. However, that's not the token that is going to be used on the neural network. It's a 1-1 trade once we launch our network and we come out of testnet.
Yeah, thanks for the question from the YouTube chat. Yeah, I guess some of my concerns would be like how public is the data that you guys are going to be crunching? Like, you're putting a bunch of Fitbit data.
No, that's a great question, and it was one of the big questions I had when I walked in. What we're doing, we're using a kind of new and interesting kind of encryption called homomorphic encryption. I don't know if you guys have heard of this at all, but each one of those side chains, when you create a side chain and you create something where you're going to be giving data into the network, it's homomorphically encrypted. And I am not a cryptographer, but I can explain this to you in the analogous way that it's been explained to me, and that is essentially that this is going to get really weird and really esoteric really quickly. But imagine that you were able to pull open a portal into another universe where you could kind of look through it and you could tell that it's another universe. The laws of physics don't operate the same. Nothing really operates the same. The electromagnetic spectrum is all skewed, and you can't really tell what's happening inside there, right? If you travel through the portal, all of a sudden you will exist in that same universe, and within a very short order of time, you could actually work out how all these rules worked. But being in that universe, you couldn't communicate back out of that universe how any of that worked in a way that would make sense to anyone on the other side. Does that make sense?
It's like a mathematical trapdoor.
You're exactly correct there. But here's the crux of that, is that we can build AIs that can interact with the data on the other side in that other universe. But again, they can't communicate it back in a way that would make sense to anyone on the other side of that. Now, just like all cryptography, it's not 100% secure. Given enough time staring at that portal to another universe with enough computing power, somebody could work out what's happening on the other side of just that one little pocket dimension. But really, all encryption does ever is just raise the price. It raises the cost of going after that data. Does that make sense?
Yeah, kind of.
And so there's two types of things on our system. There are obviously data streams that nobody's going to care about because they're publicly available, right? So like a good example of this is for our hurricane prediction models. Those the meteorological Internet of Things data stations that we're going to be releasing. Well, we're going to be partnering with other companies who will release them. People can essentially put them up on their house, and it records temperature and wind patterns and barometric pressure and all these other really cool things. But the data from those, nobody's really going to care about the privacy of that, right? Like, who cares if you know what the weather's like where I'm at? So those aren't going to have to go through the homomorphic encryption process. Those are just going to be publicly available, and there's going to be the ability for predictors to pay for those different data points in order to make more accurate predictions. Other things like the Fitbit data, obviously, there's a lot of really terrible things somebody could do with your Fitbit data in combination with other data as well. So those go through the homomorphic encryption process. Yeah, that's how we're handling the problem. I know that a lot of other blockchains and other AI blockchains, they're handling things quite differently.
Yeah, we're on Ethereum for Autonio, but most of the logic's not put on chain yet, I guess. Or Ethereum hasn't been too bad. I think it's mostly exchanges like ERC20. It's hard not to use ERC20 because of how much exchanges like ERC20.
Yeah, and I mean we're using it because it makes sense for what we need. So the way that ours works is that we're locking our ERC20 tokens. Once the sale's done, they're going to be completely locked in their wallets, and then they're not going to be usable until after we've gone through and done our 2 MVP products. So we've proven that the project is secure, scalable, does have the potential to be the most accurate predictor ever through the competitive factor. And basically all of that, once that's all been confirmed, and we've had it audited from the outside and everybody's sure that our homomorphic encryption isn't leaking somewhere and people's personal data isn't at risk of being spewed everywhere, we expect that to take about 2 years. When that happens, those ERC20 tokens will be burned, gotten rid of, and they get replaced one-to-one with what we call neurons. And those are the actual tokens you can use to make predictions with.
Cool. Have you successfully predicted any elections yet?
So the prototype right now is well, the working product right now is they're 2 separate things. The prototype itself we can't run for more than a couple hours at a time, or not hours, couple days at a time. And when you're trying to do something like predictions, that's hundreds of thousands of data streams, and needs to be predicted for long periods to be in use. So we can't scale enough to be able to do that right now. What the prototype does at the moment is just Bitcoin pairings based off of one data stream. The working product is, we've got it doing the same thing right now, but I'm trying to talk them into doing something a little more close to home, like some Ethereum price pairing predictions. But yeah, I mean, at the moment, it can only do one data stream at a time because, again, we're looking to get those side chain scaling solutions in place so that we can get all of the data streams in. I know, working product. It's weird.
Hey, Autonio's working too.
Hey, nice. So what is your guys is doing trading at the moment, or?
Yeah, it's been getting good returns. Just well, the better traders who join it, the more returns it'll get because of its learning mechanism. But
absolutely.
Yeah, a lot of people are trading with it. If you're curious and are a trader, go to Autonio. They have a really interesting decentralized trading bot, applying this stuff. Basically, when he was looking for things to apply AI to, everyone told him, please do trading bot first, because that's what people love in this industry.
Yeah, that's why that's our first MVP is the prediction pairings, and we ought to talk to you guys and maybe look at partnering, because we're looking at doing a bot for the people who buy into the project. Basically something that is just exclusive to kind of say thank you to the people who supported us. We're looking at setting up a project where it uses the predictions of Neurial in order to trade on. So
yeah, unfortunately, Autonio founder's still in the hospital. So.
Oh no! Well, of course he is, but we'll talk long term. I hope he's okay.
Yeah, he's a great kid. He's like 22, and he's, while founding Autonio, also a medical student, among other things.
Oh, very cool. Speaking of which, I should add, if anybody out there in the audience, unlikely as it may be, programs in MXNet, you should hit me up, because we could use a secondary MXNet programmer for one of our projects that we're doing.
Couldn't we all?
Yeah, I know, right? That's basically like saying we could use the second coming any day now.
I'm sure you'll find one eventually.
Somebody says real quick in the chat, will the Neurial blockchain look anything similar to now? No. Well, I guess sort of similar. It's a proof of stake right now, and it's going to be proof of stake. As far as the actual coin transaction side of it, that's all going to be proof of stake because I don't know if I made this clear yet, but the exact types of hardware that a lot of these data scientists are using to make predictions for companies right now, it's 1080 Ti's, guys. It's consumer NVIDIA. Well, it's NVIDIA consumer GPU ware, for the most part, not exclusively, but in large part. And right now, one of our main advisors is Ben Taylor. He runs a small data science firm like this. They could pull in roughly $5,000 per 1080 Ti per month just doing predictions like this for companies. And if you look at how much I've got a 1080 Ti spinning on the tower that I'm coming to you on right now, I'll be lucky if I pull $100 out this month mining. So it's a really easy way to do something actually useful. Not to say that cryptocurrency mining isn't useful, but meaning to say that this is useful to humans directly. It's actually answering the questions of humans with that same hashing power that's currently being used to find a nonce.
Are there any non-blockchain AI projects that you guys are kind of interested in, or like kind of recent news things that are kind of exciting?
Yeah, actually, yeah. Let me. There's actually this really interesting woman that I met at Coin Agenda, or not Coin Agenda. Yeah, no, it was Coin Agenda in Puerto Rico. Her name's Susan O. And she was interested in seeing if she could find a way for blockchain to make sense for her project. But she's really interesting. She was a journalist and then has, over the last 10 years, transitioned into being an AI researcher. And she's building a bot that, the way she described it to me, is it goes out and tries to find purposeful falsehood in news stories.
Nice. Oh, cool.
Big marks for that.
Yeah.
That's
Also,
interesting that I can know if it's intentional falsehood.
that is a really good question and something that I spent many hours discussing with her. It's a very complex topic. You should interview her to find out more. That's my little plug. Susan O. I thought this was clever. On all of her social media, it's O Susan.
Well, she still has 10 minutes to beam in.
Yeah. We'll hunt her down for future Blocktalk, though. That sounds like a good one. Heck
yeah. Let's see. Also, somebody who's probably going to be coming onto our board, I hope. He's building something really interesting that is blockchain based, but it's not about directly building a blockchain based AI. His name's Keith Montgomery, and he's building this really, really, really interesting system where the way that you mine it is by mentoring people in a field of study that you've proven you have proficiency in. Essentially, he's trying to help the world educate each other about these newer fields. The very first thing that he's going to be offering up on there is a sort of micro degree program mixed with like the teaching is done directly by other members on the network who earn coin by mentoring people and teaching them about these different topics. But the very first thing he's doing is machine learning. They just rebranded, and I would tell you what he told me it was, except for I know that they just barely rebranded the whole project, and I can't remember what the new name is. But yeah, that's going to be incredibly exciting. You're going to see a group of new people who have been kept outside of the machine learning schools and been prevented from being able to engage with that, now being able to onboard through a blockchain-based system and learn these new skills about AI through it. I thought that was just fantastic.
So, if not any elections yet, what is the prediction you guys have made that was most interesting or difficult that you're most proud of?
So we're not actually trying to have the thing do any predictions right now. We're still building the base tech around it. And so we literally just have it doing stuff that we think is exciting to people. And I think for the most part, cryptocurrency price pairings are what most people are trying to pay attention to right now.
Yeah.
So you got to make that money. I don't know how else to put it. Like we have to keep the lights on at the office, or else we can't keep building the thing. But I am very excited. Our CEO's name is Jen Grayson. She just got rated by Chipin as one of the top 8 women in cryptocurrency a few months back. And when they did that interview, they asked her to predict Ethereum price pairings. And her predictions have gone pretty, not exactly spot on, but of the 10 people that they asked to do predictions, hers were the best. That was from February. And then she's predicting a very bullish year for us. But she did predict the dip. So, yeah.
Do you have a personal prediction on when fully autonomous cars will be on the road?
Yeah. I'll be honest, they could be deployed right now. And even though we have some really scary news, I'm not saying that this is going to happen, because this is all about legislatures, and that's so hard to predict. It's kind of ridiculous. I'd imagine that, like, realistically, we'll see them within 3 to 4 years. But I can tell you that, like, most of the technology is ready for release right now and would be much less dangerous than humans currently driving. We have a tendency as humans to focus on negative news, and I have a feeling that that's been hurting AI companies a lot, because you don't hear AI car delivers 80,000 people safe to their destinations. You hear that the one time somebody gets hit.
That would be a fun news story. AI car doesn't crash.
I know, right? It almost sounds like something you'd see on The Onion.
It seems like they're trying to build in more redundancy to make it work, like having the combination of camera and LiDAR systems.
No, that's very true. It's interesting to see what they do, but essentially, it doesn't work. The whole thing with Uber is apparently they turned off the commercial grade avoidance system. I don't want to get sued, but that's what I read, is that they were trying to run their own crash avoidance software when it happened.
Yeah, that article, and even just watching the video, I'm like, I don't think I could have avoided that. Like, I got a video of me hitting a deer in a very similar scenario, so I'm not going to pass judgment on the auto driving software.
Neither am I. And the other thing I want to add is that yeah, it's a Vive. But the other thing that I wanted to add is now is when we're going to see the main question about AI. So my original job for the Marine Corps was aviation electronics. I did micro miniature welding on circuit cards inside jet aircraft. And what I learned then is that, like, we have the capability to fly both military jets and commercial jets autonomously. Not everyone is equipped with that equipment, but we could start doing it immediately. The only reason we haven't so far is because the question is, when the first 747 carrying passengers or mail crashes, who gets sued? Is it the software manufacturer? Is it the carrier? Is it the plane owner? That's a really nasty question that nobody really wants to find out, but I have a feeling that self-driving cars are going to be what finally propels us into asking that question. And specifically, the most recent incident sounds like it's going to help us figure out legally where the responsibility lies and who needs to be carrying what types of insurance. Yeah, but nobody wants to be the first. Nobody wants to die on that sword.
I think we'll see some real innovation coming out of agriculture, like we usually do. We had self-driving tractors like 15, 20 years ago, but they were very rudimentary. All they did was drive a straight line, and yeah, we have Fitbits now on the cows that keep track of breeding records and when's the most opportune moment. So we'll see maybe what the next iteration is. Agriculture.
I completely agree with you. Don't they have I'm from an agricultural community in southern Utah. Don't they currently have tractors that will actually take in GPS maps and basically drive themselves along the GPS route you designate?
Yeah, it's pretty. It's getting more advanced every day. Like a lot of it is just keeping the tractor in a straight enough line so you get a straight row of corn.
It's really interesting as well in the sense that they have a lot of new tech coming directly to agriculture, like flying drones that detect like which crops are being infected by some sort of pest, and they can target that area rather than just spraying everything and killing everything around until they find the area. So there is a lot of good tech that is first hitting on agriculture, because basically, as a farmer or as a producer, you want to protect what you're growing, and you want to make it cheaper because basically you don't have a lot of profit margin, right? So they're pretty open to those things as long as it's something that goes accordingly to the budget and
gives them a better off competitive advantage against the competitors.
No, absolutely. Sorry, I've been really excited.
A lot more legal leeway too when it's all private property.
Right? Even like for example, drones. You cannot fly drones in Vancouver, so you can't really test any AI with drones around BC. But you could try them in agricultural land.
Yeah.
So
No,
that's what makes it easier. So
totally right. I have to toss this in because I just learned this the other day. Somebody else in my co-working space operates a drone for a company that does machine vision. They do volumetrics for piles of stuff that's just sitting out in nature. They actually have to run. Their drone weighs 2.5 pounds. They have to run $3 million worth of insurance on every job site they fly it over.
Wow.
Imagine a 2.5 pound object traveling at 60 miles an hour somehow causing $3 million worth of damage. I dare you.
I don't know, that Russian mail drone that crashed into the wall probably left the next little scratch. So, do you guys see any kind of good applications coming for Neuralink with relating to drones or IoT?
You know, we see absolutely. I just want you to imagine real quick what Neurial can predict is limitless, provided it has a live data stream. So one of the things that Amazon's been talking about is like different swarm routing algorithms to figure out where the most profitable places to position all these drones are to do these deliveries. Imagine if they could feed all delivery orders and locations into a heat map area and then use predictive software to figure out where the most profitable place for their carriers to hang out is. Because ultimately, that's what I understand they're planning to do is little drone deliveries, and then a main carrier which houses like what the most. That's another thing, trying to figure out what the most profitable things to carry on that carrier are, because only certain things are going to be available at different times. Yeah, man, I actually pictured a whole new breed of entrepreneurs using Neurial and tools like it in order to completely and utterly outcompete traditionally based businesses. That, like, can you imagine? Heck, it's everything from window stores that could use our technology to punch in different meteorological conditions and the specific hardnesses of the different types of glass that they sell, and what direction they're facing, and basically figure out how many windows are likely to break over what time period, and then predictively order their stock into the future. I mean, just about anything you can imagine that could benefit from better, accurate predictions of the future is going to be benefited by the Neurial project. I'm personally really excited to get my grandparents on that one that I mentioned before that could accurately predict not only when you're going to have a heart attack, but it can do two separate things. Like, you could use it to do an augury at the end of each week to say, hey, the chances of you having a heart attack have increased by X% because of the following reasons, and here's a step-by-step process you can take in order to reduce your risk, as well as saying, hey, you're likely to have a heart attack within the next 2 hours, you need to get to a hospital. A heart attack is something we can mostly save people from, but the response time to the heart attack is what determines whether you're going to live or die. It's how long it takes you to actually get to the hospital and get treated.
Do you think insurance companies will start to move towards predictability markets to reduce their rates and make themselves more efficient?
Absolutely. We've actually already been talking to a couple of insurance companies. Jen, our CEO, was the CEO of a multi-million-dollar insurance company a decade ago. She's been talking to a lot of her contacts there. You know, another thing that I'd like to bring up, and actually our advisor Dave just made a post on LinkedIn about this the other day. We're talking to several hiring companies, in fact, who are going to use this in order to design their training programs for employees to generate live streaming data about how profitable that employee would actually be to the company, and take human biasing out of the hiring process entirely, which I am stupid excited for.
Yeah, we definitely need some of that.
Well, imagine that, where not only hiring, but also like who stays on the company long term is based on actual profit to the company, not what some interviewer thinks about you or what some middle manager thinks about you and all the little petty office politics, but who's actually producing.
We remove the bureaucracy.
That's what this is all about, right?
No, the one thing that I think is going on with like American politics right now is just like their zone mapping or their district mapping. Like, it needs to be done more on an analytical level to actually be more fair and unbiased. like that's where having an algorithm to decide where the district lines are drawn, regardless of party ties, would be really helpful.
Oh, you know what? Another one that I'd actually really like to see is an accurate streaming prediction of climate change and the different factors that actually affect it, where you can play with the data that you're feeding it in order to determine what could be done in order to actually fight things, and then specifically prove what is or is not actually causing climate change. And exactly, not only that, but use predictions in order to help people that are in areas that are more likely to be most affected by this know exactly when and how soon, how drastically things are going to get, and how to move and where to move to that's going to remain safe.
Dig it. I like it a lot. So we're coming to the end of the hour here. I don't know if we have any final questions. Otherwise, we do our own little prediction on the show here.
Maybe you'll be good at it.
Yeah. So for those who aren't familiar, we try and predict the price of Bitcoin in 1 week's time.
Woo! Hey, well, real quick, we're actually about to launch a predictive competition exactly like that, where people can earn Neurial tokens for being the most accurate predictor. But I think we're going to do Ethereum, and that's launching like this week, as soon as our chatbot's ready.
Yeah, I don't want to see you typing anything in. I want purely your unbiased opinion of what you think the market's going to do in 1 week's time, where the price is going to be, and we usually get a pretty good wisdom of the crowd to figure out where it actually is. So, Kyler, what do you think the price of Bitcoin is going to be next week?
I'm going to go last because I haven't actually looked at any Bitcoin charts for a little while. So give me just a second to look at this.
Okay.
He's going to just
Oh yeah. Just typing it in.
No, I actually wish you would have told me about this before, because I would have given you guys what Neurial's currently saying, but I don't have just like flat access to that. I'd have to call our chief engineer and have him look at what it's saying in the main office.
All right. Well, we'll go around the room here at least first. Let me get the chart up here for the guys in the room. Excuse me. All right. Andrew, we got your guess yesterday. What do you think your price is going to be the following day?
Today, $10,000.
10,000. So you think it's going to be $8,000 in 6 days, and then 10 grand on? All right, I can dig it.
We're gonna have a $2,000 bull run in 6 days.
Oh, it's gonna pop off. Let's see here. I guessed 9,200 for yesterday, so or 9,000. So I'm gonna say 9,200 today. Any other predictions in the room here?
You know, I'm actually going to be a little less bullish. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking we could come up as high as like 7.2 within a week. 7,200 within a week.
Ren, you got a guess?
Yes, I was gonna say $7,000. You pretty much.
Boom, bears.
Let me do my 5A again.
Yeah.
Hey, Jordan in the chat says 6K.
What a jerk.
Jordan, 6,000. Cool. Any other predictions here?
62.
62. Your name, sorry? Jack. Whoever wins gets cheap bragging rights.
Woo!
Gets to be the most accurate predictor of the Blocktalk index.
Preston in the chat says 6,700.
It's a pretty good range we got going here. There's definitely some consolidation around the 6,000 mark between.
Sven in the chat says 7,500. That's my man.
Oh, 7,500. Cool. Any final ones, or we should wrap this sucker up?
Yeah.
Our next panel.
Bolts says $1. Boo.
I'm just not even gonna humor that one. Just going for prices right rules. All right, cool. This has been a great talk. Thank you so much, Kyler, for coming on the show today.
Thanks for inviting me.
And yeah, we appreciate you spending the time on. We'll definitely check in with you sometime in the near future on the show Blocktalk here, and yeah, we'll do some checkpointing to see how you guys are progressing with your system.
Fantastic. I look forward to seeing that.
All right, so that concludes this interview. We'll return shortly for the exchange panel. Next to our global sponsors, Quantstamp and Turnkey Linux. And I guess we have one of our local sponsors here too, goldenstrike.ca. You guys are in the room here. What do you do?
Shane, do you want to? We do mining solutions everywhere, from setting up the mines, building them, hosting them, software solutions. We even train and certify individuals to service inside the facilities.
Awesome.
They inflate your power bill.
Yeah, you're the reason rates are going up. All right, cool. So I'll mute the call here until we get everything set up for the next one. And we'll trim this little section out. But thanks again, Kali.
No, thank you guys again, and long live Coinfest.
Yeah, so Andrew, where's the next guy at?
He should be leaving in shortly.
Okay.
Aaron is late as always.
Yeah, I think Christine might not make it. She said she's got a big case file.
Well, Aaron will probably get here in like 10 minutes. Let's start with that.
Oh, you want to start now? Or we're waiting on Nebula then?
Yeah. I'll
Okay.
still
Yeah. All right.
You guys have any? Find it okay?
Yeah.
Coming to the
Due to slight technical difficulties, we will be doing a new link. Please check it out on the channel below, and we'll see if we can get it going there. We'll be ending this stream right here. Thank you.